Welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on the Jeep. Well, actually we're working on something for the Jeep. If you followed that, I've built my own custom fabricated intake plenum, and I used a Chrysler 4.7 V8 throttle body, and I adapted it on there in a way that I'm not very proud of, but it worked. But it was eventually going to fail, so I don't think I really went over too much of how I did that. So now I'm redoing it in a better fashion and showing you how I'm doing it. And maybe it's something you want to do for yourself. I am working on making adapters so that you can bolt the 4.7 onto the 4-liter intake manifold and have a little bit of taper, but I've just not found, there's no easy button way of getting the throttle linkages hooked up. There's no easy for that. But I'll show you what I did, and maybe you can consider it for your own build. Here we go. I'll probably go over this again, but I just wanted to show you this while I was inside in the shade where you can see a little more detail. So this is the throttle body I had on it, and I ended up cutting up the lever arm off the 4-liter and welding it to this, but where this needed to hook up was right where the throttle stop needed to be, so I had to rig up some stuff to make it work. Eventually this weld will break and that will fold right off of there and become a problem. So this is why we're doing this again. So watch the video, you'll see what we did. I'm quite proud of what it is now. I feel much more secure about it. Eventually this was going to break off in the woods, and you're just going to have to put your foot on the throttle to keep it running. It's not the end of the world, but it's not something you want to deal with. Alright, we got our horseshoe intake here for mock-up and our factory throttle body. Alright, I believe these are 60mm. I could check, but factory. You can get a 62mm fairly cheap. I think someone sells them on Amazon. There's a company that sells somebody. I'm sure it's someone else's knocked off throttle body, but they're cheap enough. 62mm. Alright, so stock versus what's on my Jeep currently. I've got this big boy, and the adapter should work out pretty good. Alright, so I've got this on mine. Now I don't remember the exact spec. I will put that here in text, but I can show you this. You put this guy on top of this guy. It almost fits inside this register. If I can hold my mouth out. Alright, see the edges of the old throttle body? So this one, out of the box, much larger. It also has the idle air control stuff. It's got TPS on it, of course, and I think that's about it. One downfall is you do lose the map sensor that's mounted on the throttle body. Now, most guys, if they're doing this type of stuff, they're already boosted and they've already moved the map sensor, so it's not really a big deal. You just hook it to any manifold source with a hose and you're good to go. Especially a GM2 bar is really easy. I use the Honda 1 3/4 bar. My intake's actually got it drilled and it bolts right to it. It's got a place for an O-ring. It seals up real nice. Not a fan of the SRT4, but we're getting off topic. Alright, so idle air control. You can take the ISC out of your 4.0 and put it into this one and it works just fine, because that's what my Jeep has in it now. So you don't have to swap connectors if anything's different. Just swap over the whole ISC motor and everything, and you're good to go. That works. TPS, also, you can swap that over just fine too. Also, really easy, not a problem. Some of them already have, I think they've got the same plugs on them, so it's fairly easy as far as that. Where if you go to a GM style throttle body, you have to adapt or cut and solder and all that stuff, which isn't a big deal either. But I prefer this at this point. So I've already got it modeled up to have the adapter that would be a little tapered, because by the time you open this all the way up to this size, if I can hold my mouth right, I wish I already had one here. You need the adapter so that the throttle arm doesn't hit the intake. And you probably could maybe hold a gasket. This is just a cheap Dorman intake that I ported forever ago. I think I paid 20 bucks for it, so I don't know if the factory one's core shift is as bad. But if you take this all the way out to that size, you're barely going to have any gasket. It's not the end of the world, if this was square on the factory ones perfectly, you'd probably get away with it. But my plan is to have the spacers, or have the adapter spacers, be a little tapered, which I don't see that being a problem. We'll still open it up as much as we can. Alright, next. The biggest problem I had with the one on my Jeep currently, was getting the throttle levers and everything to work out right. So, let's see if we can see anything with the light. Maybe we can see better over here. Yes, that's better. Alright, height from flange to center point is the same, throttle body to throttle body. Where these are keyed is the same, pretty much. The orientation is about the same. So what I did was cut this off of my old one and weld it onto this, but this needs to occupy the space the throttle stop is on. So I did some work that I'm not very proud of, but it worked, because once I chopped them up I couldn't go back. So I'm trying to do a little better job this time. Also information for anybody else that might want to do this. Alright, so my new plan. Let's go over that. If you look at these, when you line up the centers, this plane is not that far off. It's fairly close. We don't want, look where the throttle stop is here, look where it is here. We can't move that. It doesn't work out easily without doing something very convoluted. You could get crazy and make it work. I did, but we're trying to do this as easy as possible. So, we want to leave this here. We don't want to mess with that. We will cut these off, pull this plastic piece off, push the rivets out. We'll end up cutting this guy off if it gets in the way. If it's not in the way, we'll leave it. But since these are keyed the same and they have the same size key, for the TV cable, I'm just going to grind this off, cut it off, put it over this one, and I'm going to stitch it to it. And when the TV cable is done, it will still have proper geometry because it's still same distance from center in the same spot. Not a problem. What we're going to have is the throttle cable and cruise control. The distance from here to here is like 1 1/16 inches or so. We don't have that real estate on this one. We don't have that real estate over here where it was. That's where the throttle stops at, and that's where I ran into problems on my current setup. So plan is to put it right here, as far up as possible, right here in the space, and once this is gone, that'll be a little easier. The throttle cable can come right in here and get on that. Problem we're going to have, and the same problem I tried to do that with my old setup, and I quickly hit the downfall. I had it clocked too far up, and where the throttle cable is pulling this way, once it got so far, it was almost a straight pull on the cable. So it was trying to pull the throttle body this way instead of rotating the lever. So I'm hoping we get away with that with just 20 minutes to take this wheel. And I plan on grinding this right here until I can pull this out. I don't know if that's going to work, but that's the plan. We're going to see. And then, if I can, I will measure this, and then I will drill a hole right there, once this is out of the way, of course, and we will slide it right through and tack it on the backside. And then hopefully that's done. That will move that connection back a little bit, and I think I can manipulate or make an offset spacer for the bracket that holds all the cables. I think we can adjust that there. Also, because we're going to have an adapter where at this height you would have a straight pull, or maybe it really depends on the angle of the cable. We're up here, and then once we space this up some more, the cable angle should be coming a little more around. I'm hoping that will help us get away with the connection being up here rather than over here where this one is. So we'll see how this goes. But first things first, I'll put you on time lapse, and I'm gonna very carefully cut this out without cutting it in half. wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Yeah, still a little warm. I've taken a little chunk out of it, but if you're following this, if you can see now that its size, it is barely smaller than this end here. I really expected it to be neck down more and it to have more of a brad, but it's not. So we've got this out. That wasn't a big deal. Now all we gotta do is grind this bastard off. We can cut it right here and just grind this off. Hopefully grind it, the whole spring comes out and everything. It's not a big deal. We can just go ahead and cut it while we have a bigger piece to have hold of. I've just cut those pieces off and got the plastic piece out of the way. You could remove this all the way. For right now, I'm really not that worried about it. This, by the time we open it up just a bit so it goes around the braided part, will go right there. And it looks like it pretty much barely, it misses the brads. So you could leave these in and not have a problem. So we will open this up just a little bit and then we will tack this to that. And we're going to be very thoughtful while we're doing it. We'll probably keep some water nearby because we don't want to get this spring too hot. You could take all this apart and weld it that way, but we're going to tack it. We'll put something in between there and the spring, get that pushed over so we don't get anything too hot. So weld and then dunk it. And then TV cable's ready. Then we just drill our hole, put this guy in, and our throttle cable's ready. And then we have the task of figuring out the throttle cables. Once I lined it up, I tacked it in the center, and then I tacked it over here. And I shouldn't have tacked it over here with it together. Unfortunately, I had to sit there too long because of the way I positioned myself. It's really my fault. And the heat I put into it heated up the spring too much. But it's still fine, still works. And I'll probably just end up taking it apart and using the other spring on the other throttle body, like I should have with this one. But we'll get away with it. We'll be alright. So, lesson learned. I could have welded it maybe over here and not got this hot. I thought I'd be safe, but I had to sit here too long, and I guess once I got close to the edge, it just warmed that up. Which is weird because it didn't unbend it or hurt it right here. It doesn't even look like it got hot. But as you can see, the spring is just a little bird nested now, just a bit. And maybe it was already like that, but I doubt it, because it still feels fine. But now we will mark and drill our hole for our pin. And when we tack it, we're definitely going to want to get this spring pulled out of the way. Whoopsie. Now we're going to drill the hole for our throttle arm pivot, which must have rolled somewhere or I knocked it in the floor. Ruh-roh. That's not great. There it is. Alright. Now we got to drill a hole up here for this guy. So it's going to go in pretty much right there, as far up as possible. And I went and measured the actual where the throttle cable hooks on here, and the end of it is a 1/4 inch from the center of this, but the corner of it, the corner of the way that it snaps on, is about 5/16 from corner to edge, because as this starts to rotate, the edge is going to get closer to what's left of the spring here. Actually, it'll be past that, because if we look at this like this, you know, the ball will be past the spring. So what we want to do is make sure that our whole center is going to be at least 3/16 off of this edge, so that the barrel doesn't end up binding on anything. So that should be easy enough. I've got her set right here, 0.315. Give us a little more room. We want as much as we can get. That should work right there. You can see my scratch mark. Something in there. And then for our height, we'll just set it just like 1/4 inch in. Dun, 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 dun. 0.26. Let's see what that looks like. Let's give it a scratch. GoPro really doesn't work that great up close. I think we can get it closer than that. So that is centered on the scratch mark we just made. That leaves a little bit of meat up top. I think we can get it a little closer. We want to cheat it as far away as possible, because we're going to end up having to manipulate the throttle cable. It may work out and not really be a problem, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have to manipulate it just a bit, because either the pedal's going to be closer to the floor at wide open, or it's going to hit the floor before we hit wide open, and I don't know if the cruise control can compensate for that either. That's closer. That's not bad. We're going to drill it right here. I know you really can't see that. We're going to drill it, set this in, and tack it. If I can't get this tail far enough away, it looks like I can. We're already going to have to swap this spring, because I already cooked it. I thought I might get away with it, but I didn't. So, that's the plan. I guess I'll drill it, and I'm going to go ahead and take it apart. 2 Torx. These on a Magnum, which I've bored several Magnum throttle bodies. These are so soft they strip out no matter what you do. So I didn't really want to take this apart. But we're going to find out how soft these are. So far, these are no big deal. Not like the V8 Magnum throttle bodies. Feels like it's just backing right out. We'll see how the threads look when we're out of there. So far, so good. Threads look alright. I know you can't see that, but they look okay. Sweet. Looks like the blade comes in from the bottom. It's got 2 spots right here to keep it from going that way. I've bored several Magnums from 50 to 52 and then to 53. 53 seems pretty much as big as you can go, and you got to be careful. But I think it messes up the entry more. You lose airflow from the entry, even though you gained area in throttle blade size. This one you could probably open a little bit, but you're already so tight right here that it's probably not really going to help that much, especially for our application. So we should be able to turn this guy and pull this out the backside. After that, this should just pull out. Nope, there is a tiny snap ring inside this hole. Alright, I think it's been like 2 days, but we're back at it. So I'll have to go over where I left off. I think this is welded on. This has the right center to center. I've got this drilled. I think I had to find the right size drill bit. That's where I left off for this piece to go through there. Alright, so let me find that. Got it pressed in. Now I'm just going to put a little tack right here after I make sure I've got it on the right side. And then we're going to put it back together, put it on my Jeep, and see how it works. Now my Jeep doesn't have the factory manifold, so everything won't be exactly right, but if it works for mine, I will start figuring out how to make it work on the factory one. Alright, we're back together. I've actually got a pile of Magnum springs, and they were very close to the same. The J-hook wasn't quite as tall, but it made it just fine. So, problem solved. Next time, just take it apart if you're going to weld on it. That sucked, but we're okay. So we're welded. We'll see if we have to do anything to the bracket to make it work for now. But at the moment, we're just going to finish assembling, take all the parts off the Jeep currently, and put them on this throttle body so that I can set this on, hook the cables up, and make sure wide open's wide open. This part I'm not worried about. It's exactly where it used to be. It's just this part. We may not get full throttle. The clip, I wasn't able to get the clip out of here with my tools. I didn't have a set of snap ring pliers that were deep enough it would hit the body before I could get to it. So I'm not going to put this back in right now in case I want to take it apart. I had my wife put a little tension on this as I got 2 picks in there and spread it, and she pulled it out. So for right now, we're just going to rock on. Let's go swap some parts out, see what this is going to look like. Just so you can see what we did have one more time. Throttle stop looks like crap. Spring also looks like I was mean to it there too. We shall see. Yeah, it looks like we got a little more swing on that. But let's swap it. And we're on, and you guys are gonna tell me if we have wide open throttle, I hope. Let's see. See what we got. Looks like we're kind of on the edge. This piece has been modified to move around the fuel rail where I put the short injectors. So it's not exactly where it's supposed to be, and I've bent it up to make it work for this. Right now we get wide open if I push pretty hard on the floor. There's some water in the carpet. It's kind of got it swelled up a bit. So if I push it, we have wide open. If I just go until it's nice and easy, we've got almost wide open. So we'll have to address that. But that'll be when I address this bracket and scooting it back that way, which will be easier said than done. But this I feel good about. This I did not. I knew eventually that would become a problem. So it's not perfect yet, but it's better. If you made it through that, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all those things. Every little bit helps. So we'll see you in the next one. I think the next very soon upcoming video is probably going to be my traction bars I'm making for my Dakota. Or I'm working on putting a 4-barrel throttle body on the Dakota. And I got to make some stuff to adapt that too. So keep looking forward for it. Thank you.